A very good morning and welcome to this evaluation conclave, which is fifth of its organization, 2022. Um, Chair of Board Evaluation Association of Bhutan, Dr. Funso, panel members, and other senior colleagues from lecturers and professors from Institute of Royal Institute of Management and Royal University of Bhutan and all the young training officers of Royal Institute of Management who will be planning officers, HR, research, and so many other officers in the coming years by January 2023. Um, I just have about 7 to 10 minutes to speak, so I should rush. Um, just my presentation basically focused on how the evaluations and monitoring evaluations are taking place and how we develop public policies. Next, please. Well, this is just a gist of the background that I'm flashing to you in front of you. If you go to the Constitution, I think this is the apex law of the country, right? That also speaks a lot about assessment, monitoring, and evaluation of our programs and projects, implemented in the government for efficiency and effectiveness is very important, and it has been enshrined in the Constitution as well. And we do have, the government has developed a national monitoring evaluation system in 2006. It's a very old document, which was sort of hardly being implemented. But then I think we have done quite well in terms of monitoring. We have a very systematic monitoring system in the government, but we have a weak practice in terms of evaluations and research of the plans, policies, and programs and projects that are being implemented by the government. Um, Except for a few donor-funded projects which come as a mandatory, evaluation, like the UN system and other international bodies and donors like Evaluators and Red Cross, and all these donor-funded projects come with mandatory evaluation. So for such kind of evaluations, we do necessarily have to have evaluations being conducted. But for others, for the government projects, unless it is very resource intensive, financial intensive, we very minimal engagement of evaluation. Next, please. This is the framework that's been revised recently this year, based on the 2006 monitoring evaluation system of the government. On the results level, as you know it, as result-based management (RBMD) framework, we have this activities, output, and outcome, and action. So in this aspect, we engage more or less in terms of monitoring up till output level, whether things are going right or wrong, whether the programs and projects has to be realigned, redesigned, all these things. And on the middle part, we have this operational systems, which we have a very robust system, but then these systems are individual in its own. For example, in the one we have monitoring tools, budget system, which is by Minister of Finance. Then we have also electronic payment management system, and we also have government performance management system as a system, which is very So you know how difficult it is to gather information first, and then to do analysis, report writing, a lot of things has to be done in evaluation. So again, forward, we also have the resources constraint, especially in government funded projects. Except for the donor funded, they have the mandatory things, 1 or 2%, 3% of the budget has to be committed for evaluation. For us in government, it's really, really difficult to get financial support to evaluate certain programs and projects, unless it is high-level commitment of directors. And we do have human resources as well. Those who have been trained, those who are expert design, and they do have their own consultancies. Of course, they contribute in some ways, but in the government who are managing and coordinating evaluations, we still have limitations. And moving forward, we still need to promote a one-to evaluation system very strongly, rigorously, and this has to be right at the government. We still do, and I'm not saying that government is not doing it for the lack of resources. We also need to invest in capacity building on development evaluations. So we do need to train people in terms of statistics, in terms of methodology, how to go about evaluating government policies and plans and programs. We also have to make, I think, mandatory evaluations of large and resource-intensive projects that are being implemented by agencies, even at the local government level, whether it's be it a farm, be it a social programs in the grassroots level, like for example, school education, how the school education investment has brought about outcomes to the students, like one of our colleagues has raised a question about him not being placed in the right position. I think these things make sense. And hopefully we also do certain evaluations institutions in the country. We are lucky to have the Evaluation Association of Bhutan, who is one of the CSOs leading the evaluation and coordinating, advocating on evaluations. And today this is one of the very important platforms that they are creating to make awareness. And we have to foster networking and strengthen linkages, existing linkages, within the country, between the CSOs, UN organizations, and the implementing bodies like ourselves in government. And also, not only that, through, for example, like evaluation, committees, Evaluators South Asia, and Global Evaluation Initiative. And there are many other evaluation groups and institutions in the world that we need to collaborate with.
Second speaker is Madam Zhang, and she joined the civil service and started her career as a tax officer with a bachelor's degree in commerce, and she later obtained master's in public administration from the Institute of International Administration, and it's so difficult to read. It is in French. So the institution is in Paris. And she was a consultant at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and International Finance Corporation in Bangladesh from 2010 to 2011. And she headed the Bhutanese National Internal Audit Service and resigned from public service and co-founded a political party. From 2016 to 2018, she facilitated from Geneva, Switzerland, the establishment of the Bhutan Red Cross Society. Madam Samtashi has always been a social worker at heart and feels she has found her calling in serving as the executive director of Loden Foundation, a civil society organization based in Bhutan. And she also serves as a vice chair of the Bhutan Civil Service Network, a network for CSO in Bhutan. And a very rich experience she has coming from working with the different organizations, both in the country as well as outside. And she has very rich, accumulated rich experience. And based on her experience, she would be sharing also the importance of evaluation in policy making, as well as based on what's happening, the current concern in our country, and also speaking from the perspective of being part of CSO in Bhutan. And also, I would like to inform the gathering here that she was my first mentor when I joined civil service in 1998. Yeah. Thank you, and have a good day.
I forgot. I'm so glad Funso mentioned Madam Tontashi, because otherwise, because of my name, when I get up, you'd be all shocked. We were expecting a man. Yeah? I'm probably the only woman in Bhutan called with that name, Tontashi. Even among men, it's not very common. But it's been an interesting experience having that name. I mean, before I even start, I think it is quite important to set the tone a little bit, especially for our young people here, to say that because we are discussing about evaluation of public policies, and in other words, it just means the decisions of the government. So there will be a lot of critique on the government. Apologies to Mr. Shidova, who's representing the evaluation from the government side. But it's not really bashing the government as such. And I think there's never been a better time to discuss these kind of things, how we can improve, because COVID already knocked us down. No? That was all expected. And then on top of that, when we came out of COVID, all this transformation that's going on, that's made everybody jittery. A lot of our young people moving off to Australia. So it's a very important time for us to see how we can self-improve, correct our course. So I think there's never been a better time. So thank you for doing this. But let me warn you that I am no expert on evaluation. In fact, I'm taking online classes on monitoring and evaluation myself. And that is the state of Bhutan. And I've been a civil servant, senior civil servant for 25 years. And I'm learning online just now. So it says something about where evaluation is in the government. So basically what I'm going to do is talk to you about from the perspective of a layperson, and it's my attempt at answering this question that has been raised in this forum. And all keeping in context our Bhutanese public policy making and the circumstances existing in the country as I see it, that indicate that there is a need for some serious evaluation. For this, I'm drawing on my experiences as a civil servant, a citizen, and a member of the civil society. And I didn't want to mention politician because it's not really well received, but since Funso has already mentioned, and that reminds me, the institute where I studied in Paris is called l'Institut International d'Administration Publique. It just means it's the International Institute for Public Administration. And that's where I learned my French. So. Anyway, so the question here is evaluation useful for making public policy? And my own answer to that would be a resounding yes. In fact, I would say it is critical. And why would I say that? Because public policies, government decisions, like Funso mentioned, is supposed to be for the benefit of society or for citizens. So these public policies affect our everyday lives. And then the entire societal fabric is affected by how citizens' lives are facilitated, they're inspired, they're secured. So that's very important. So then it's not just enough to make policies. These policies have to make sense, and they have to address needs adequately. They have to be relevant. From time to time, review what was applicable 20 years ago may not circumstances have changed, so we no longer be applicable. So even if these are good policies, to see if they're still relevant to the times. So, and that means that we must have a process through which we test policies time to time. And how do we test these policies? Basically through evaluation. But the question is now, do we actually carry out objective evaluation of public policies in Bhutan? So from my many years of experience, 25 years in the in the civil service, then around 2 years of leading a CSO, and most of all, living as a conscious citizen of this country, subjected to the many laws, rules, processes of the decision makers in Bhutan. I think I've seen many issues that really make me have to state that we have a long way to go in ensuring coherent and enabling policies. And for me, the overriding impression perspective has been that it appears to me that the government has been purely focused on the regulatory aspect of public policy making. So now policy evaluation assesses whether, like I said before, issues raised are addressed or not. Now, if I'm just citing examples, okay, there are many examples, but I have to restrict myself to a few. So, if a proper evaluation had been carried out, the Army Welfare Project, for the ones who are not aware, it is a manufacturing activity that produces copious amounts of alcohol. That would no longer be in existence, because almost all domestic cases in Bhutan are alcohol related. And as everybody, I think I don't have to educate you on that, alcohol destroys families. And yet, we have an important organization in Bhutan that produces alcohol. Not just produces, but also makes it easily available and at very cheap rates in the country. So, bar licenses, for example, are issued in abundance. And in this country of gross national happiness, we have, believe it or not, that we have one of the densest bar populations in the world. It might be hard to believe, but nonetheless, it's true. So, public policy making also is essentially aimed at creating the conditions necessary for the general well-being of the citizens, and some redistributive policies are necessitated to ensure that the well-being of certain vulnerable sections of the society also. And for any society to thrive, it is important for a citizen to live within healthy, ethical, and moral boundaries. And for that, we need laws and mechanisms that ensure that no one person is able to infringe on the rights of another, and that a just, honest, and peaceful person is protected from the actions of an unscrupulous perpetrator. Now, my story might lean too much into a personal area, but I think it's important to highlight these things because we all go through difficult times in our personal lives. Maybe not everyone speaks about it. And I have no qualms. So in my personal life, one of the most difficult times that I've faced is related to legal processes that give me no sense of security. I have been enduring the actions of a particularly vindictive and unethical person in a lawsuit that has been dragging on for the last 4.5 years. My frustrations with the legal processes put me in 2 years of depression. But don't worry, I'm fine now. Okay, now. And I'm thinking, if the manner in which justice is served can throw a strong person like myself into the depths of despair, just lead me to depression, what must it do to somebody who's frail and vulnerable? So we have to think about these things. And this court case started at the lower court of the Women and Children's Bench. And that court was specifically created to protect women and children. But unfortunately, Probably, I don't know what to say, but this special court with that important mission was assigned only one judge. And so you would have cases that would just get prolonged when the judge would not preside for very understandable reasons. There's a death in the family, or she's not feeling well, or she's gone on some training. But that shouldn't happen by the motion. So a timely process evaluation in this case, and when I say case, the pun is intended, so would have exposed the challenges in the process, and then pertinent changes would have been made. And probably, and most probably, I'd say actually, they would have assigned at least one more judge to their bench. So moving on from that personal painful experience that's still continuing, I have been in the CSO sector now for just over a year, and I already observed many issues that beg better comprehension, more consultation, and wisdom from the government side. And here I see an urgent need for a cost-benefit evaluation, which what that does is measure the economic efficiency of public policies through a systematic prediction of social cost versus social benefits. And to illustrate that, let me cite a few examples. Now, I think most of you know that CSOs reach the unreachable, and we do it rapidly. Why now? Because of our flexibility. And we have established access to these vulnerable segments of the society, because they are our direct beneficiaries. And then because we don't have to go through some long bureaucratic process like the government. But the tax exemptions on CSOs have been lifted in 2017, I think. And what happens now is it makes it very difficult for CSOs to function in a financially efficient manner. And then we actually get imposed on for bringing benefit to the society. It makes it more expensive and therefore difficult for donors to donate, even in kind, and then for CSOs to accept such donations. For example, just recently, the Taraina Foundation received a huge consignment of donation in Melbourne of sports jackets for rural children. And the Department of Revenue and Customs, my old parent department, actually levied huge amount as sales tax and customs duty. And the CSO had no money to pay that. They were saying if we had known we would be charged that kind of thing, we would never have accepted this donation. But who would have lost those rural children? So I and then such government decisions deprive the vulnerable from receiving the benefit of generous donations from compassionate souls. And now the much dreaded sustainable development fee, the SDF, $200 per day per person. I mean, it's maybe a sound policy for the tourism industry as such, but when this is imposed on donors of CSOs, who actually want to visit here on working visits to check on the projects, because they are also liable to answer to the ones who donate to them, not who give them the money. So when they want to come here and check on the projects that we have done, they have been imposed this SDF, and now this has resulted in many donors backing out of arrangements to financially support the CSOs in providing help where help is most needed. To any of us, does this make sense? Okay, so we had almost like an emergency situation in Bhutan Foundation, because two of our very strong donors for many years was threatening to back out. It's resolved actually, thankfully. So the CSO representation, even in the CSO authority board level, we used to be 5 government officials and 2 CSO representatives. And in the August halls of our parliament just recently, they decided we should stay 2, but the government representation is increased to 7. which makes us minority, obviously. And this means that government representatives will sway decisions in their favor, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But then when we consider that right now the government focus seems to be leaning more towards regulating than facilitating, then this is not a desirable composition for the CSO authority to work. I'm about to finish. So now with the country graduating from LDC, least developed country, CSOs as a conduit for external funds and a platform for donor participation is going to become more and more important ever. However, if CSOs are blockaded rather than facilitated, we are going to lose the very reason we are affected, our access and our flexibility. So the government, no matter how well intentioned, is a slow-moving machine. And so is many times are not able to effectively provide timely service, especially to those sections of the society that are normally the most deprived. There are numerous examples that I could highlight, but then 10 minutes, the time is already up, so I have to stop here. However, the fact that we're speaking of and examining ways in which public policies can be improved, especially through the much effective but neglected process of evaluation, is, I think, a reason for all of us to be optimistic. And I would like to end here in thanking the Evaluation Association of Bhutan for taking the right step towards hope. Thank you, and Tashland.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you for a very big resounding yes to our question asked to this platform, and also thank you so much for very insightful reflections of what's happening in our country. Right? And it was so interesting, but we continue given our time limit. And our next speaker is Dr. Chandra Shekhar Dakal, and he is currently the national consultant for public financial management expert economist for SDG finance and domestic resource mobilization of UNDP country office, Bhutan. He has been working there since April 2022. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, USA. He has 17 years of experience in government, private, academia, and NGOs. He is an economist, financial analyst, researcher, a data analyst, and evaluator by profession. So he will be sharing his experiences. Yes.
Am I audible? Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. Chair and panelists, warm welcome to all participants. I have not much to say now because Sir Tassi and Ma'am already spoke a lot about what I have to say. So I will stick to, I'll skip a few points and stick to the one that's left out. So I have a control. I have a control. Okay, now. So I don't want to go on definition of what evaluation is. It's already spoken out very loudly. But one thing that we all have to know is policy is for improvement of the welfare and well-being of the people. So we always have to look at that one, given all other factors are there. It should be measurable. It is a means of determining the appropriateness, effectiveness, efficiency of the policy for the people. So definitions, if you go by, actually I'll be bringing up my personal experience, but from the international literature that I've done. So definition, if you go by, different countries have different definition for evaluation. And OECD has conducted a research on 42 countries, developed countries, and they have listed out in this area. They have said some of the countries they define evaluation based on criteria, where they have said efficiency, effectiveness, impact, relevance, and sustainability, where others have on public interventions like policy program plans. Others have said that on time, what time you should do before, after, during the program, policy evaluation, what time. Others have an evaluator. Who should evaluate? Is it the government itself who is implement the policy, or is it the outsider, or is it the public? Who should evaluate that? Is it external or internal factors? Other one says quality. What should the quality, and to what extent we should go? Is it rigorous, evidence, objective, or systematic? So those kind of definitions are there. So it is quite heterogeneous. So it depends on actually the country that is trying to evaluate. So the definition varies. So why, policy evaluation? I fully agree with Meron saying that yes, we should evaluate. Policy evaluation should be there. Why? So I have highlighted a few points here. Some of the, of course, one is effectiveness and efficiency is always there. In order to bring out effectiveness and efficiency for the policy, policy we should evaluate. Let me give an example of Kenya. In Kenya, what happened is like they wanted to increase the attendance of students. So, but they don't know what kind of policy to implement. So what they come up with is they choose 3 different schools, and they say that okay, in one school they intervene with giving medication because they thought that maybe the child is sick and they are not able to attend the school. In another school, they came up with a policy of school fee uniform, saying that okay, we'll give uniform, maybe that will motivate students. In other instance, they use provision of school meals, and then they started evaluating separately. It turns out that the school fee meal was much higher. The effect was much higher. Effect for all was higher, but the cost for increasing the effectiveness was higher in provision of school fee. So they rolled out that kind of policy for the overall other schools as well. So I think that's something that we should learn in Bhutan also. So we should have we should test and then only come up with a policy rather than just jumping. Other one is demonstrating the impact of value of policy. What kind of value we are importing by giving the policy? Is the value, for example, a question like, is policy producing intended or unintended outcome? Like what just Madam described on some of the incidents. So is it intended or unintended? For example, Indonesia family planning program. What happened in Indonesia is first. In Indonesia, they said that, okay, the birth rate is high, so let's come up with a family planning. So they came up with the family planning, and the evaluation was done. When the evaluation was done, they said that, oh wow, the policy's impact is very high. But it turns out that some of the research that they went again and they did the research, they said, no, there should be something wrong there. Then it turns out that they found out that it's not the family planning that is impacted. It's because the girls' education has improved a lot. When the girls' education has improved a lot, then automatically there was a family planning from their side. It's not the program itself. So what they did is instead of focusing on the family planning, they invested the resources on education. So that's what we should actually do. Find out the impact. Sometimes it's not the program itself that impact. So other questions is informed and evidence-based for decision making, which studies are also highlighted and Meron also did. Is policy aligned with the government priorities, or we are just framing the policy just for the sake of framing it? Responsiveness, like what Madam Chawang described, do policy outcomes satisfy the reference or value of the targeted group, or is it just focusing on some one or two elite groups and then trying to make the policy? Right? Other one is appropriateness. Is the policy equitable and efficient? Is it for only one sector or is for all sectors? Is it equitable for one sector or group or is for the other groups? Is it for only the high people or is it for lower people? So policy should be able to capture inclusively. So informing future, other one is informing future policies. This is really interesting. Should policy, should current policy be expanded, contracted, or discontinued? So that one, a very good example is conditional cash transfer in Mexico, where they have given cash to women, a single mother, in order to make sure that the child goes to school, the family improves and all that. It was well recognized, and later on it's continued. And there are some programs where it didn't have impact and it was discontinued. One of the example I can give from Bhutan is maybe I have not seen done it, but water taxi program. In some areas it has improved, so now it is expanding a lot. So those kind of evaluations should be taken. So provide accountability. Now again comes up accountability. So who is the policy maker? Who did that, and who should be accountable? For instance, is it GNSC? Is it Ministry of Finance, or is it the donor? So there should be an accountability on policy as well. And documenting policy development. Evaluation is also very important for documenting policy evaluation. Later on down the line, we do some policy, we come up with policy, and next generation, if they want to come back and see what happened, the documentation should be really clear. So, if policy evaluation is effective when applied to answer important policy, questions, rather than just coming up with. We say most of the policy in Bhutan are done on a cup of tea over a single meeting. So that should not be the case. So, are we doing the right things? Should the question that we should be asking the government with the policy. Okay. So what are the benefits of the policy? So next, there are several benefits. Sectoral, government, the policy evaluation will have government agencies, public servants, and communities. But I'll just highlight on a few points. In government, if you do a policy, proper policy, then it will have encourage public trust in government. Other one is on community, it will give great confidence on activities of the government. So those things are always there. It will have a ripple effect on the community. So because of the time, I'm going to answer. So this is again just to reflect. I'm not going to go into detail. The next one. The main objective for conducting policy evaluation, OECD has conducted for 42 countries, and the first one, it goes by sequence down the line this way. Hierarchy. So they have measures, government results and resources required to achieve them was the highest rating, followed by promote evident informed decision making, improve the quality of public service. So those were the ratings that were done by the OECD countries for the importance of policy evaluation. Of course, there are some challenges for policy evaluation. I'm not going to detail as highlighted by Tassi also, but one of the most important challenges which I want to reiterate is political will and sensitivity. There should be a political will for doing evaluation. We should not just blame saying that we don't have money. If it is required, obviously we have to do it, irrespective of whether you have money or not. We should not be only waiting for the donor to give the money. So that is something I want to highlight on. Other things is taken here. Okay, a practical example that maybe our chair can help me. So I think EAB has conducted research survey on, I think it's 33, correct me if I'm wrong, 33 companies, government institutions, to see what kind of evaluation is, what are the real challenges in Bhutan, and then they have found out this, the result is this one, that one, right? So they have out of, I think it's 33, is that correct? No? Okay. So out of that, they have found out that lack of policy, lack of evaluation policy, 50% of them say that there's lack of evaluation policy in their organizations. 9% say limited or no budget. 12% says lack of evaluation skills. Unrecognized need for evaluation, 12%. And the report has clearly found out that in Bhutan, most of the evaluation are done on formative evaluation and summative evaluation rather than prospective evaluation. So formative is when you do at the beginning, summative is at the end, but what is required is the prospective, which is throughout. So that is what is required, which is missing. So given the time limit, well, what I would like to conclude here is that there are different kind of evaluation methodologies which you can take, and if you have time, you can discuss with me. So let me conclude by saying that evaluation are needed to inform policymakers on a range of decision making. And then, but again, not all policy or program warrants an impact evaluation, especially for development countries like Bhutan, because we don't have funds. What kind of policy should we evaluate? We should prioritize policy or programs that are innovative, replicable, influential, statistically relevant, scalable, generalizable. I think we can go to classes. And external validity, meaning you come up with a policy for this sector, the policy should be able to replicate all, not only one sector. Policymakers should set clear goals and questions for the evaluation to ensure that the results should be highly highly policy relevant. And of course, common limitations are there, costly and time consuming, but that should not be the factor to say that we didn't do evaluation. And mixed method is always required, quantitative and qualitative methods and experts should be there. And the rule of program or policy operation determines what evaluation method can be applied, not the vice versa. Meaning, if it is urgent, you do evaluation. Don't just hesitate saying that you don't have money. Thank you so much.
It's a very interesting perspective again, and again resounding yes, and but with a strong political willingness, right? And that's the most important part. And our next speaker is Mr. Tashi Dendur. Is a young and emerging evaluator from Bhutan. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Sustainable Development from the Royal University of Bhutan and a postgraduate diploma in Public Administration from the Royal Institute of Management. Tashi is currently pursuing MBA from Pontic School of Business and Technology, Washington. He also did multiple certificate courses in project and program management, monitoring and evaluation, including gender transformative evaluation. He is currently the co-leader for Evaluate Bhutan and a board member of the Evaluation Association of Bhutan and Asia Pacific Evaluation Association. As a E and MNE enthusiast, he plays an active role in advocating the importance of MNE and volunteers for various MNE-related campaigns and programs across South Asia Pacific region. Tashi currently works with Self Development Fund in Bhutan as program officer. He was with the Royal Civil Service Commission as assistant HR officer for about 3 years before joining SDF. And it's yours, Tashi.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, esteemed members of the panel, and my dear colleague from RIM. As I represent a young and emerging evaluator in this panel, I will be discussing evaluation and policy in the context of young people like you and me. And contextualizing the panel theme, I've kept my discussion topic as youth in evaluation, discussing the status, necessities, challenges and opportunities for young and emerging evaluators in Bhutan. So before I delve into the discussion, I would like to introduce the term young and emerging evaluator for the benefit of some of our young participants here. So to all of us who wants to be in the category of young and emerging evaluator, we have to be under the age of 35 years, or we have to be new evaluators with less than 5 years of experience, recent university graduates who are interested in M&E, and even development professionals who wishes to become professional evaluators can be categorized as young and emerging evaluator. Next, please. In order to support Evaluation Association of Bhutan in promoting the culture of evaluation in Bhutan, we have studied Evaluate Country Chapter in early 2021. We are the country chapter of Evaluate Asia and Evaluate Global Network, and the Young and Emerging Evaluators wing for Evaluation Association of Bhutan in our country. As of today, we have about 20 registered members, and in terms of our vision, mission, and objectives, these are in sync with what Evaluate Asia, Evaluate Global Network, and EAB has. In a way, we are just reinforcing and supporting the efforts of Evaluation Association of Bhutan in promoting the culture of evaluation. Next, please. To give you a snapshot or present our position as young and emerging evaluators wing in Bhutan, in collaboration with EAB, we facilitate in developing capacities of our fellow young and emerging evaluators. in the field of monitoring and evaluation, not only through trainings and workshops that are being held and organized in Bhutan, but also we encourage and help our friends attend trainings provided by evaluation communities in Asia Pacific. We also facilitate in building professional networks with evaluation communities beyond Bhutan. Through this network, we are proud to share that few of our fellow young and emerging evaluators are now at the forefront of leading some important programs such as Asia Pacific Winter School, Policy Evaluation Fall, and Eval for Action campaigns, among others. In order to gain hands-on experience in evaluation, we also try to engage ourselves in evaluation assignments. Under the leadership of EAB and Dr. Pinto, we have been fortunate to be given opportunity to engage in one of the evaluation assignments. So this was an eye-opening and enriching experience for young and emerging evaluators like me and few of my colleagues here. We also have our representation in EAB's board, APA board, Evaluate Asia, and this gives us a platform to share our views and concerns about evaluation and engagement of young and emerging evaluators. Now on necessity, now why is it necessary to have young people or young and emerging evaluators in evaluation and policy making? If we are taken on board, do we have anything to offer and contribute? I'll try to answer this with a few quick points. First, all of us know that every policy, program, or projects will have direct or indirect impact on younger lives. So this calls for inclusion of young people in policy making and evaluation. If the policies are for youth and young people, we can be a key informant so that the policies are evidence-based and well-informed, rather than being formulated on assumptions and extrapolation of the data, the existing data. We can also help make a right decision and advise on what is best for us, the young people, so that later on the policy does not derail from ground realities. Young people can also help in bringing diverse perspectives to enrich the policy dialogues and decisions. Next, please. Now, having discussed the necessities to involve and engage young people in policy making and evaluation, where do we fit in this policy cycle? First, in situation analysis, the policy makers can consult young people, hear our voices, and understand the ground realities to gather collective intelligence. This takes care of inclusivity and representation, which is often identified as common challenge among young people. While we may not have much to contribute in the second phase, which is policy design and planning, which requires technical knowledge and experience, we can always come in and reassess if our concerns are taken care in the policy design. There are enough evidences and cases to show that if policies are about youth and young people, the likelihood of policies succeeding or doing well increases when young people are involved in the implementation phase. I would like to stress a little more on the monitoring and evaluation part. In designing the evaluation, we can help design relevant questions, making the languages youth-friendly, contextualize data collection methods, and understand the realities of youth better. This is how I think we should empower youth to get optimal benefit out of them if you are going to engage them in policy making and policy decision. Even if we are to be engaged in the final phase of policy cycle, young people can be consulted to share their views on what has really worked and what didn't go well. So that this can be taken as suggestions and recommendations of the target group to improve the policy in the future endeavors. Next, please. Now, in our effort towards promoting and professionalizing evaluation culture among young and emerging evaluators, especially in Bhutan, we also face some issues which we believe is common across many countries in Asia Pacific and beyond. First, as Tashituba sir already mentioned in his presentation, the evaluation culture is not very strong and popular in Bhutan, and even government focuses more on monitoring than evaluation, so which limits evaluation to only donor-funded projects and programs. We also, in some way, like mentoring and professional guidance, even if you want to professionalize in the field of M&E. And we also feel that we are not being actively engaged in developmental discourse and decision making. So these are some of the challenges that we have faced and that we have observed in the last 20 months since we established in early 2021. Next, please. The same challenges are also being echoed by some of the prominent figures in the circle of young and emerging evaluators. For example, Ms. Gabriela, who is our chair in the Evaluate Global Network, has said that young and emerging evaluators normally face the common challenge of exclusion and underrepresentation in evaluation community and many other organizations. Similarly, Jadna, United Nations Secretary General's envoy on youth, also says that if young people are not part of measuring the progress, in the sense evaluating the program or project of the SDGs and adjusting our policies and strategies accordingly, we will be leaving the most vulnerable groups behind. So these statements underscore or highlight or posit the exclusion and underrepresentation as most common challenge that young and emerging evaluators like me faces currently. Next, please. So having discussed the status, necessities, and challenges of young and emerging evaluators in policy making and evaluation, I would like to conclude with some positive notes for our young and emerging evaluators and young friends here. We have observed that the opportunities to involve in evaluation assignments in Bhutan and Asia Pacific is improving because of concerted efforts put in by our evaluation communities across Asia Pacific in engaging young and emerging evaluators in the real-time evaluation assignments. There are also ample of opportunities for training and networking and M&E. An added advantage of being a member with EAB and Evaluate Bhutan is that we are eligible for many scholarships, bursaries, and discount fee, fee discounts for workshops, trainings, and conferences. In fact, we are proud to say that many of our co-leaders and fellow registered YE has got lots of opportunities in the form of scholarships and bursaries to attend some very high level M&E workshops and trainings across Asia Pacific. So we also see opportunities to professionalize ourselves as young and emerging evaluators and establish in the later part of our life as professional evaluators. So these are some of the very encouraging and positive signs that we see as young and emerging evaluator in Bhutan. So I'll keep it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Very interesting perspective, including youth's voice, and watch out for this, our young participants here for the young and evolving youth Bhutan, so you can always be a member and voice your concerns, especially when it comes to policy making. Okay, thank you so much for bringing that perspective in. And our next speaker is presenting virtually, and he is Dr. Salah Bayospi, and he's joining us from Morocco. He's from Morocco Evaluation Association, and he is a researcher, engineer, and evaluator, and associate professor at the Faculty of Science, Economics, and Social Studies at the Muhammad V University in Rabat, Morocco. He is an engineer and has worked for 20 years in defense sectors. During his doctoral study, he developed his passion for evaluation research, where he discovered the importance of evaluation to generate deeper evidence and support for scaling and adaptation of policy. He focused methods, a combined approach to scrutinize causal mechanisms in the Canadian Journal of Program Evaluation. And I would request Mr. Salah Bayospi to be within the time, and because our presentation time is for 10 minutes, and please try to be end your presentation within the 10 minutes time. Thank you so much, and now the platform is yours, Mr. Salah Bayospi.
Thank you for this presentation. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, very
Okay.
clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start briefly, but before I will thank all the persons who are in charge of the conference organization. Okay, my presentation to the fifth evaluation conclave tries to answer the question, uh, what do we know about the complexity in the evaluation of public policies? Indeed, the present presentation examines the issue of complexity in the conduct of the evaluation of public policy by answering the fundamental question of how evaluators can manage complexity by producing rigorous and credible evaluation results. My presentation starts with the introduction to the subject, and I move on to respond to the three fundamental questions. First, what do we know about the complexity in the evaluation field? Second, how do evaluation theory and practice cope with complexity? And finally, how to encompass the issue of evaluation complexity within an evaluation framework. As you know, intervention become more complex with a lot of interaction with environments. So evaluation should deal with this complexity because the evaluation roles is not only measure change, but really shape social change. Despite growing interest in addressing the complexity of evaluation policy implementation, the use of methods of complexity in evaluation is still not widespread in practice. So, our ambition is explore approaches and methods in evaluation field to the complex environment and respond the question how evaluator can manage complexity to reach the transformative change. In this section, in next section, we will respond the question, what do we know about the complexity? Before talking about the intervention function in the complex social system, I will define briefly the concept of complexity. So according to Zimmerman, complexity expresses the emergent, unpredictable, and non-linear nature of association between action and outcome. So the intervention functioning in complex social system is shaped by interaction among various changing actors. Thus, complex intervention emphasizes identifying uncertainties and the role of context in modeling the dynamic relationship between implementation, mechanism, and context. Following ARTHAN et al., to think and work politically, evaluation should integrate the dynamic character of program to deal with context politics and complex issues as, for example, uncertainties. To analyze the evaluation process complexity, I propose to view evaluation methodology, evaluation politics, and intervention complexity. First, we will view the limitation of the evaluation methodology to deal with the complexity. Mattison stated that evaluation has not contributed sufficiently to transformative change, social change. She identifies three reasons. First, evaluation is curbed by dominant ideology. Second, evaluation is not independent due to influential stakeholders. Third, evaluation is a practice that follows predetermined guidelines and therefore produces unsurprising knowledge aligned with the decision makers' insights. According to Schwartz, evaluation as an established oriented practice merged into bureaucratic and administrative practice. Decision makers and bureaucrats are the most influential stakeholders during the evaluation. Consequently, methodological fundamentalism neglects cultural and social political pluralism. As social transformative interventions are distinguished by unpredictability and settlement-based methods that capture only predetermined objectives miss unintended outcomes, evaluation misses unintended outcomes and offers only partial truth. In fact, randomized control trials fail to understand social change. Indeed, complex systems need a deeper understanding of unraveling intervention mechanisms and their relation to the context that statistical hypothesis testing method cannot do. There is a growing emphasis on methodological consensus to link program theory to the program outcome under condition of uncertainties, and to view a program as an integrated system in multi-level environments. Hence, understanding unintended consequences may improve policy design and implementation in complex systems. Now we will see the evaluation in politics within the lens of complexity. There is a paradox concerning evaluation politics. Decision makers need evaluation-oriented problem solving to handle the complexity and diversity of interest and value. But defensive mechanisms are hampered when evaluation threatens the status quo in hierarchical organization. So this paradox adds complexity to an evaluation in a political context. We can ask why politicians try to control the evaluation process. Governments think it's politically safe to control evaluation content and process because political power, that's why political power influences the evaluation's design and implementation. Indeed, evaluators' autonomy is tackled by the hostile political environments, negotiating the evaluation process, the volatile political environments, political and popular agenda, the threats to independence, and political ideology. In summary, as a political practice, the evaluation must consider the volatile and sometimes hostile political environments to contribute independently to social change. By providing guidelines for evaluation design and methods, decision makers try to control evaluation content and the process. Now we will see how do evaluation theory and practice cope with complexity. Indeed, the effects of big data, transnational governance, and new emerging global issues will require different theories of change and innovative approaches. In the same vein, Harich defined 4 challenges to evaluate complex multi-level intervention. First, network diversity, adaptiveness and rules, blurred boundaries, behavior, and collective results. In fact, evaluation can cope with complexity by using alternative reasoning that underlines social intervention. This new paradigm is achieved by using adaptive and flexible design as a part of a participatory system approach where evaluators act as a changing agent. Now I will present the concept of adaptability as a fundamental approach to handle complex in evaluation. To address the complexity of evaluation and social nature of policy development, Barbrook, Johnson, et al. Emphasized the importance of using frontier research, having an early and open dialogue with commissioners and evaluators, and entering into a flexible evaluation contract to enable evolving adaptive research design. They advocate the use of innovation in method to manage complexity of an evaluation to reflect contextual issues and local culture. Therefore, generative logic as realistic evaluation and contribution analysis is more appropriate for exploring the program working in a complex environment, and rigor is more determined by relevance than the nature of method. Likewise, thinking and working politically emphasize the appropriate theory of change and real-time feedback to account for program design and implementation. Another complexity dimension concerns the unintended consequence. Indeed, randomized trials do not correspond to an assessment that aims to understand social change due to predetermined goals. To understand unintended consequence, evaluator can use heuristic and adaptive methods by using more deliberation during evaluation processes. For this, approaches such as realistic evaluation, qualitative comparative analysis, and process tracing are better suited to examine social change mechanisms. In this section, we will view how recognizing stakeholders' plurality in participating evaluation deal with complexity. But how to get the most prominent explanation about how an evaluation has provided social change. In a complex socio-political context, a more participatory approach that engages with the weakest stakeholders' view can promote learning about social change. Stem argues that participatory parity to evaluation theory and practice reveals injustice and finds some solution throughout empowerment and creativity. Another approach to deal with complexity is innovation in methods. In fact, the rise of generative logic approach is due to the growing need to evaluate complex intervention. So, applying these explanatory approaches, the systems approach may be a conceptual framework to unravel complex policy evaluation issues. This approach scrutinizes the interaction of a systems component that can generate emergent properties that can't be reached by examining each part in isolation. It offers a framework to examine the policy critically as an open system interacting with other systems. Indeed, the field of evaluation suffers from a kind of reductionism to deal with the complexity rather than detailed analysis and reflection. Mixed method can play a vital role in building and testing theory about the process of disruption, the functioning of complex social systems. Moreover, the generative logic combined with experimental counterfactual logic can produce transferable knowledge based on contextual factors to explain how and why outcomes are reached. Otherwise, to handle complexity in evaluation can be developed by adopting a heuristic approach to evaluation and not making separate questions about different outcomes. In fact, to overcome some limitation of the bottom-up approach, the system approach can be promoting alternative to this dominant evaluation paradigms. Its application to the evaluation field can produce a better understanding of policy implementation by scrutinizing the interaction of systems complement that can generate emergent properties that can't be achieved by dissecting each part in isolation. As an application of system approach, the theory-based evaluation explores rival explanation and examines the causal mechanism and contextual factor that combine with intervention to contribute to the result. To increase the evaluation utility throughout shared decision-making and suited evaluation design to stakeholders' consent, Diane et al. Propose a theoretically elliptical approach to evaluation based on principle and method from other models that informed the evaluation design and aim to develop capacity building by exploring the complexity of the problem the program is trying to fix. Also, Dahle-Larsen promote applying organizational theory to impact evaluation by incorporating the theory of organization to take question the assumption of causality and rationality. More significantly, to improve development evaluation in an environment with a lack of transparency, Porter advocates initially identifying supporter and constraint of power. That is why he advocates of using the concept framework of principal intermediates and agents that analyze where power is located, contracted, and transferred. Thus, the principal agent concept could reduce the undermining interest of the poor in development evaluation. Evaluator can make the political dynamics behind the policies and programs that they assess more visible. Likewise, to promote evaluation utilization in public policies, knowledge brokering seems to be an interesting approach to link evaluation field, research, and policymaking practice. The knowledge brokers are individuals or organizations that serve as intermediaries between the world of research and policymaking practice. For example, program manager or responsible of intervention implementation. Finally, we will see the fundamental role of the evaluator as a change agent to deal with complexity. As evaluation is an action-oriented and the political action, the evaluator's role is fundamental as a change agent working in a complex political environment. However, the evaluator's role is between two paradigms, research thought and practice action that model evaluation design, method, and the utilization. We advocate that evaluation method and design should be modeled by the complexity of intervention rather than epistemological reasoning or predefined guidelines. As complexity should shape evaluation design and method, this presentation proposes a complexity-driven evaluation framework to deal with complexity in conducting an evaluation. It suggests applying the system approach with adaptive research design using bottom-up methodology based on principal agent concept as a conceptual framework to conduct evaluation. The principal agents
hello, Dr. Sala, can you hear us?
Okay,
so we are way beyond the allocated time, and yeah, I'm afraid I'll have to stop you. I hope it's fine.
Thank you, Dr. Sala, on bringing out the complexity in the public policy evaluation. And sorry, we have to stop you because we have already exceeded the allocated time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Q&A session, do we have time for Q&A? Yes, we have extra.
Doctor, I think we can take one.
We have space for just one question because of the time.
Okay, just thank you so much for to the panel members. I think a very interesting discussion here. I just wanted to give some of my reflections since nobody else. I hope I didn't snatch an opportunity from them. Just regarding Tashi's presentation, I think you rightly mentioned about the challenges of having having a plant evaluation in the government sector. We have been maybe JNSC and UNICEF has been working on developing a draft evaluation policy which is yet to be approved. And if you look at the content of the policy, then it talks a lot about the need for each organization to have a regular, periodic kind of evaluation before they either upgrade the program or if they want to exceed. So I think that is a very good draft evaluation policy which we are not being able to, get it endorsed. So I'm looking at your profile as a person from JNSC as well as the cabinet. I think there is some, as a pool of evaluators, we would like to put a request to you to have a look and see if it can move further because that will determine and that will resolve a lot of issues around evaluation being donor driven or having to tag it as some mentioned. We are in a way not being able to deliver if we are not being able to show our results and be transparent and be accountable. And that's what evaluation calls for. The second question, of course, it is also related to the capacity building, limited capacity. So I think from my perspective, having worked in this field for 10 years, even if you look at the market or all our partners, I think there is certainly a limitation there. And from Ang Chang's, I think it's very, you raise a very right issue of having a social cost and social benefit analysis to be done. I would urge that we as a group of evaluators come together to look at it. It is always looking for, I think, relationship, building partnership. I think that gives a very good opportunity. And from Dr. Chandra's presentation, I just realized that maybe there's a need for us to have a very standard, minimal standard training package for the evaluation session to the members. We have so many young members, and I think as our young member, as she see it, I think that should resolve, and make more people, young people attractive in the field. And in the long run, if you look at the government reforms, it all calls for accountability in Melinda. So I think that are the few things I wanted to just highlight. Thank you so much.
Another question? Yeah.
At the outset, I would like to thank the Evaluation Association of Bhutan for giving us this opportunity to attend the conference here. To be honest, we didn't even know the existence of this Evaluation Association of Bhutan in our country. Until recently, we knew about this conference. So by going through this leaflet, we can see our beautiful vision, mission, and some of the actions what we do say and do. So I think as an Evaluation Association of Bhutan, evolution is something that's not welcome. That's what we felt, and I feel that Evaluation Association of Bhutan is Evaluation Association of Bhutan and the government institutions and agencies are working in a parallel way. That's what we felt. Evaluation Association is working on its own way, and government institutions are working in their own way, in a compartmentalized and in a silo manner. So my question is that how much does the Evaluation Association of Bhutan try to collaborate and coordinate with the government institutions and agencies to work in an integrated manner so that these visions and missions are practically implemented in collaboration with the government institutions and agencies to bring about the robust evaluation system in the government institutions? That is one of my question. And the second question is that Sir Tashdua has already reflected that the evaluation system in the country is not that robust and strong. And I feel that the existing evaluation system in the country may be just internal evaluation systems. That is what I felt. Sir Chandra also reflected on internal and external evaluation. So I think external evaluation plays a very important role. So that's what I heard. So internal evaluation, it brings about the bias evaluation. Say that's what I feel. So how much does this external, if there is the existence of external evaluation system in the government institutions, government plans and programs or not, or if there is no external evaluation system, what are some of the way forward in bringing about this external evaluation systems? That's my question. Yes.
Your question is directed to
well, my first question is directed to, I think, Madam, particularly, I feel,
okay.
since Madam is the chair of Evolution Institute.
Thank you so much for bringing out very important issues here. And I would say that the answer to your question, like whether we are working closely with the government or not, I would say both yes and no. Yes, why I'm saying yes? The Evaluation Association of Bhutan is founded with support from UNFPA and the UNICEF Bhutan, and we were the founding members, and we still get support. We still get support from them yearly, some amount to run our activities, and this is in a way like it makes us available to carry out our advocacy programs and all those things. And in that way, we are being we are working closely with government and also we have a member in our board sitting from government. So in that way, we are working closely with the government. And why I'm saying no is sometimes how I feel is. I always ask myself this question, are we recognized or are we given importance? So this answer I couldn't get. So far we have developed all this vision, mission and activities and all these things, but where do we stand in the policy making process? Are we given consideration of including? And we have our EAB as a member. Member comes from different sectors of the organization in Bhutan, as well as we have representative of youth, which is very important and our future, right? And in considering all those, so I'm saying whether we are given any importance or not. I still do not have an answer to this. But from our side, we are very much willing to work with the government or any other organization for the development that could reach the people's level and benefit everyone equally, intersectionally. So that's what we are ready for. Thank you, and I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Amdesh, for the question. I think I would rather take it as a suggestion than question. I think we have been collaborating with UNICEF to basically revise the evaluation policy. Basically, it was monitoring evaluation manual, which contains both policy, protocol, as well as the guidelines. I think in collaboration with UNICEF, in 2019, they have reviewed this policy and presented to Committee of Secretaries as well, and presented to Commission, where we have received certain feedbacks to be incorporated. But then thereafter, we couldn't sort of present. Suddenly, as you know it, COVID-19 wave came in March 2020, so there was very little time window between the 19 review and 20 COVID, so it got dragged on. And we have recently reviewed, and with us going to the cabinet, I think it will definitely come through somewhere. We have, I think, reduced one step rather than discussing among GADC and then putting up to cabinet. We are the now sort of review body as well as the applicable body. So I'm pretty sure this policy will come through soon. And regarding the capacity building aspect, I think we would ultimately, as I've said, I think we need to collaborate and network with a lot of international organizations and CSOs. I think we can collaborate, coordinate this capacity building. As I've already mentioned, there were quite a lot of people who were trained methodologically, statistically in development evaluation scheme. But somehow those people are expertise lost, unfortunately. But then it's not like what I won't say that they are not benefiting us. They are benefiting in some ways through sort of external evaluations, being external evaluations, because we do have if we have finances, resources, I think we can do that kind of external evaluation that Michael talked about. We have that as a policy statement where we need to do one external evaluation as well as one internal evaluations at HLB level on a priority basis. I think that that way, when we also sit to external evaluators, we do rope their expertise in and bring their expertise. I'm also answering the question that my colleague has told, the difference and importance between internal and external. We do carry out internal evaluations ourselves. Within a short period of time in 2022, quite a lot of evaluations have been carried out. Of course, without losing any single penny, mostly desk review. So in some cases through Zoom meetings, and in some cases through Google questionnaire collection, data collection. We do that. It's not like we are not giving importance to external evaluations. We do give external evaluations, but then what you need to understand is with external evaluations, it comes with money. And even to mention in the evaluation policy that certain percentage of project has to be allocated for evaluation, it's very difficult because if it is a 1 billion budget allocation, 3% of 1 billion come around more, 300,000. So it's all to do with resources ultimately. Whether you have a perfect policy being framed, formulated, it's ultimately due to resources level. There are more than 36 or something policies being developed now. And what we are facing challenges in terms of implementation of those policies. And rightly pointed out, Madam Gee. And when once you develop policy, it comes up with financial resource requirement, which is very difficult. And post-pandemic, it's even more difficult because you can see a lot of inflation more. There are little money going around, so there's little money to pump into promote these evaluations. But having said so, I don't mean that we are not giving importance. We will give importance, but with the priority project. Thank you.